Currently, Bitcoin price is around $84,000, and a lot of you are probably wondering whether we already had a market top at around 110,000 or we're gonna have a continuation of a bull market in the upcoming period. Today I want to address these things and see how this will affect Web3 gaming, whether we're gonna see Altseason, and I wanna show you some stuff that I think many people in Web3 are actually ignoring, so stay tuned. Hello everyone, I'm Željko and welcome to Crypto Grid channel. So this is a typical video in comparison to what I'm doing lately, but I've done a lot of videos like this in the past, and I think since we are all in a Web3 industry, besides having fun in gaming, obviously we want to stay updated to the trends, what's going to happen in the market, and obviously we all want to make money out of it. So lately on X, I can see a lot of debates, what's going to happen next, and I want to give you my opinion on it. There is actually a guy on Twitter called Colin Talks Crypto. He changed his name to the M2 guy, and he recently did calculations on M2 money supply in correlation to the Bitcoin price. And in the past, all of us, we were looking at like 75 days offset, while he actually did a calculation where 107 days offset works actually much better. And if you look at the exact correlations, these numbers are pretty high. So I did the same on my chart, and as you can see, once you do this offset, what you would expect based on this is that we have a pullback till the end of April, and after that we could expect the rally. And one thing that I noticed, for example, if we compare this bull market in comparison to the previous one, is timing wise, both these times, for example, if we look from this top to this time, it's around 100 days. And if we look, for example, in the previous bull market, from this top until this local bottom, we also had around 100 days, which is actually pretty interesting. And I expect something like this to possibly repeat like we had in the last one. Also, for example, if we look at the timings from in the last bull market, from one top to another top, it took around 200 days. And I think something like that could repeat here as well. It doesn't need to be exactly 200 days, but for example, if we look, 200 days would be, for example, here. This means that we could either have a small delay to this 107 days correlation, or we could just have M2 supply just continues to increase until this moment. Another thing that correlates with this thesis is if you look at the Bitcoin dominance, you can see that now stablecoin supply started increasing as we are having pullback, which is a good thing, which means that people are now keeping their money in crypto. They're not extracting away from it. Instead, they're just waiting for the right moment to enter the market. And for example, if we see during this pullback, during the previous bull market, it's also the period where the stablecoin dominance was increasing, as we can see here, which is a good sign since it means that we're gonna have more people in a position to reinvest that money and to have a continuation of a bull market which happened during this period. And also this is something that could possibly indicate that we might have an alt season as well, but as you can see, the altcoin dominance is pretty much staying in a range for a while, and I don't expect such a huge altcoin dominance as we had in the past, and it's something that you should look for. You should keep checking at where people are allocating their capital and which narrative is gonna hit next. We had meme coin narrative, we had AI narrative, DeFi narrative. I really hope that the gaming is gonna be next, but I wanna speak about some stuff first before we address gaming specifically. So another thing besides just seeing stable coin dominance increasing is that we can actually see an increase in a supply of stable coins. As we can see here, it is constantly increasing, and it's something that's very bullish in my opinion, because if you see a retraction of stable coins, that could actually mean that we are approaching bear market. As you can see, last time we even approached bear market even before the stablecoin supply started decreasing, but it was very hard to enter the new bull market before stablecoins actually started increasing. As you can see, for example, here USDT actually started printing exactly like close to the bottom of the market, even though the supply of the rest of altcoins were decreasing. Another thing that I am actually happy to see is that recently we started having negative funding rates. And this is also, for example, if you look here, this is the period where we had negative funding rates. Here we had negative funding rates, and like in this period that I already mentioned is somewhere where we had negative funding rates. Also, the guy that I mentioned before, he built CBBI index. As you can see, usually when we were at the peak of a bull markets in the past, the index that he built always reached 100 or very close to 100. It's pretty much different in the indicators aggregated and weighted together. This index is currently at 68. At the peak, I think it was around 82 or something, which is nowhere close to the peak, which pretty much indicates that we didn't hit peak so far. And yeah, since overall volatility decreased, we might have smaller pullbacks and smaller increases in prices. But for example, for this bull market and for this pullback, I wouldn't expect us to go like much more below 72k. Maybe we might go to 60 something k. But even if this happens, I expect it to last for a day or two and to just be literally a week on a weekly candle. And from that, I expect this high correlation to continue, which means the Bitcoin price should go up starting from May. And yeah, I know a lot of people are like saying May and go away, but I expect this to continue for at least 2 or 3 months based on this M2 money supply increase and based on like previous all-time high. When we look specifically at the gaming, I don't like addressing specific coin just because I think it's something that everyone should determine for themselves, and I don't like people pushing specific coins, especially because it's usually like when you see somebody pushing something, it's usually something that you should avoid, and it's usually paid stuff, so this is already a bad sign. But we can see that everything is like pulling back on a monthly level. There are few coins that are outperforming the rest. Overall, even though I'm highly bullish on a Web3 gaming in a long run, we can see that the amount of investments went down a lot. We could see some increase in the last months of the 2024, but now we have small amount of investments in Web3 gaming. And yeah, usually there is a big delay from the investments to the game release and from gaming studios actually coming up with the game. And you can see a lot of tweets lately, for example, as this one, like we have under 10 shots on goal for crypto gaming, and if none of them hit, I don't expect crypto gaming the funding for another 2 3 years. And honestly, I wouldn't give specific names because you never know what will happen. Often we had like these statements in the past for different games, and it happened that these games where we had super high expectations, they actually failed, while some other games from which people didn't had such a high expectations, they actually perform much better and they're still performing solidly. But still, my opinion is that Web3 companies haven't found an awesome way on how they will onboard Web2 players, and this is something that we need to see in order to see a big boom of Web3 games. And if one of the games actually managed to do this, I think this will positively affect the whole Web3 gaming space, since a lot of people still have very negative connotations, and they're like, when they hear something is related to the blockchain and Web3, instead of feeling that they will actually have ownership of the assets or governance opportunities, they see it as something negative, because often like Web3 games goes hand in hand with losing money for a lot of people, unfortunately. So we need to find ways how to combat this and leave Web2 players with actually positive experience, and Web3 players as well, obviously. And funny thing is, if you look at the top chains regarding Web3 gaming, honestly, I don't wanna say names again, but it's not the order of chains that I would expect. I can see now that AVAX is completely missing from the list. But for example, the amount of engagement on my posts when I mention different chains doesn't correlate with this order. For example, when I mention something regarding running, I have way higher engagement, to be honest, than on anything else. And if you look at activity, number of transactions, unique address wallets, you can see that, for example, BNB is like way higher, and even running pushes for transactions in their games, which just shows how much room there is for both acquiring and retaining new players. So regarding markets, I'm bullish on gaming and I expect it to take off in May as everything else. The only question is like whether if it's gonna be the main narrative, which I would really like to see. But pretty much now is a good time for accumulation. And again, I think one of the reasons why gaming is not taking off more seriously is because a lot of people invest into stuff that they are not even aware of, that they are not playing, they're not trying. And this is also something that needs to change in Web3 gaming, because usually if you're not playing the game, you won't be the person that will have the biggest benefits in the end. I hope that this video was helpful to you. I'm looking forward to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you for staying until then. Stay strong and healthy. Bye.